Hi guys, my name is Kylie and today I'm going to be talking to you about becoming an au pair. So the first question that I should answer is what exactly is an au pair? An au pair is a nanny that lives in the house of the family that they nanny for, and they're usually international. So the second question that I get asked a lot is how do you become an au pair? And essentially there's a couple different ways that you can go about it. So the first one would be to go through a company. So you would apply through them, and then they would help match up the interviews between like a host family and an au pair, or you could do it online, not through a company. So there's tons of Facebook groups that are like au pairs in this city, and you can go on there and find au pairs that are looking for a family, and then families that are also looking for an au pair. So there's that, and then there's also Au Pair World. I personally went through a company because I wanted that security that comes along with having a company to back you up for anything, and they take care of doing background checks and things like that, and I just felt more confident going through a company. And after my experience as an au pair and getting to know other au pairs, I would suggest going through a company, because I have a friend who had a contract with this family, and then all of a sudden they told her that they didn't need her for a month because their old au pair was coming back and they were gonna hire her for that month. And so my friend was out of a job and a place to live for that entire month because the old au pair was going to take the room that she had been living in for the past several months. So with a company, that kind of thing can't really happen. It can be more frustrating because there's paperwork and you have to have so many meetings with people, but I really think it's better in the long run. And another really good benefit about going through a company is that they organize a bunch of play groups. So every Monday there's a play group in this place, and then Tuesday they have one here, and they have a play group for every single day of the week. And then over school holidays they have play groups that are generally free. They organize an Easter egg hunt in the park. Then that's something that you can take part in without having to pay for, and it's already organized. You don't have to search for it. They send you that information. So I think that's another really big benefit of going through a company. If I ever became an au pair again, I would definitely go through a company. So I went through a company called InterExchange. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I'm just letting you know the company that I went through. You apply online, and then they will email you or call you to schedule an interview, like a video chat interview. So then they ask you for a couple different documents. The first, I had to write a letter to my host family, to any prospective host family. The second is I had to have 2 different references, and then I had to get a health form and have that signed by my doctor. And then they needed a copy of my passport and a copy of my license. They also did a background check, but I didn't have to worry about any of that. They just took the information that I had given them and then ran a background check on that. And they also do a background check on the host family as well, which is really comforting. So I gave them all of that, and then they sent my application to Dream Au Pair, which is their Australia and New Zealand partner. So InterExchange is the American side, and then Dream Au Pair is their partner, their overseas partner. And then the host families will reach out to you and say, hey, I'm really interested in interviewing with you. These are the times available. When are you free to schedule a video chat interview? Now there are 2 things that I have to say about this. The first is that being in a different time zone makes it a lot more difficult and makes the process take a lot longer. So if I send them an email on a Friday, early in the day for me, for them it's already Saturday. So they're already, so they're not gonna reply to it until Monday. And then by the time that they do reply to it, you'll be asleep, and then it just takes a little bit longer to get through like that. And it's difficult to set up a time to interview. For me, I got really lucky because I had a second shift job. So when I was getting off of work, it was perfect timing for them to be able to interview with me. But that is something to keep in mind. The second thing is that the Kiwis have a very relaxed culture. So they're not necessarily going to respond to your emails as quickly as you may be used to, especially coming from an American society. We're very quick to respond and, getting things done as quickly as possible, very efficient. And the Kiwi culture isn't like that. They're very relaxed, like it's no big deal. And so you're going to have to give yourself a little bit more time than you might think to interview with a family and match with a family that you like. Another thing to point out is that it's a possibility that you might get more than one offer from a host family. And I can't stress this enough, that you really want to find a host family that you mesh well with. Because I had interviewed with families that I was like, yeah, I could totally work for them. Like, the kids seem fine enough. There's no issues. But I didn't have such a connection as I did with the host family that I ended up staying with. It makes the whole experience so much better if you have a good connection with your host family. Because I know plenty of au pairs who, for them, this is a job. And they just get up for work, and then as soon as the parents come home, they are out of there. Like, they don't want to spend more time with the family. And I think they haven't had as good of a time as I have, because I really feel like I have a family here. And so I just really can't stress enough how you want to make sure that you have a good connection with the family that you choose. So once you have accepted an offer, your next step is to discuss the contract. And so that includes, the benefits and also your responsibilities with that job. So first I'm going to get into the responsibilities of being an au pair. And this is going to differ from family to family, as to be expected, but for me at least, this is what my responsibilities include. So obviously with any au pair job, it's going to be taking care of the kids, which means feeding them, bathing them, any of that sort of thing that they need depending on the age, obviously. And then it also includes taking them to maybe after school activities or to school, to play groups, things like that. Mine also includes doing the laundry whenever the basket gets full, doing the dishes, tidying up around the house, like vacuuming, sweeping, wiping the counters, and then also cooking dinner. It really just depends on what the family needs. Another thing to note is that the schedule is going to be very different for each family. So for me, I have a kid who is younger than school age. So he stays home and has a nap in the middle of the day. So that means that I'm working throughout the entire day, but then I also get a day off. So I only work 4 days a week instead of 5, like most of the au pairs. So it really just depends on what your family needs for what your responsibilities and what your schedule looks like. The next thing to talk about is the benefits. So at least with the company that I went through, you get accommodation, you get food, you get a living stipend, and sometimes a car. So the first benefit that I mentioned was accommodation. Now, this is also going to vary from family to family, which is something that I hadn't really thought about. So for me, I live on the basement level of the house. I have my own room, I have a little living area with a table and a chair, I have a kitchenette, I have a bathroom with my own shower, and a lot of the au pairs don't have that. They share a bathroom with the kids in the house, or even possibly everyone in the house. So it really depends on the family and the house that they're living in. And I'll get a little bit more into that later. The next thing is food. Now you get, your 3 meals a day, but it's not always necessarily what you want. So for example, I know au pairs that have a vegetarian family, and they're not vegetarian, which means that all of the meals that they're eating are going to be vegetarian. Or vice versa, a family that isn't vegetarian and the au pair ends up eating a lot of salad because they don't have, vegetarian options of what they're eating. So that's one thing to take into consideration. And also if you have an allergy, so they're going to provide you with allergy-friendly foods. If you're allergic to peanuts, then they're not going to have peanuts in the house. But it's also something to take into consideration and talk to the family about beforehand if you do have dietary needs like that. So then you also get a living stipend, and then you also sometimes get use of a car. So I know some au pairs who have no car, they don't drive at all, and then I also know au pairs who have their own car that they can use on weekend trips. For me, I can use the car for work purposes, so I can, taking them to school and play groups and things like that. So that's also something to take into consideration, that even if it may list it on their website as accommodation, food, living stipend, car, that car kind of has an asterisk next to it because it may or may not be included for the family that you end up with. So now I'm going to start talking about the positives and the negatives of being an au pair. The first thing is that I think that it's a really great opportunity for first-time travelers, because I know that it can be scary to think about going into a new country to work, but having this position made it a whole lot easier to transition into. So you've got job security. So you interview with families while you are in your home country, which means that when you arrive in this new country, you're going to have a job, which means income right away. The second thing is you're already going to have a house. You're already going to have a place to stay. So you leave that airport and you know that you're going back home, or you're going to a home. Another really great thing about being an au pair is that you live at work. So that means you don't have to commute. If I sleep in on accident, if I forget to set my alarm or don't wake up to it or fall back asleep, all they have to do is knock on my door. So it makes it really, really nice. Living at work can also be a negative because it can be harder to get away if you are just really stressed about work. You live there. So, there's not so much of that separation of work and relaxation time because it's meshed together. So you've also got a shared living space. So that means that if you want to, go grab some breakfast from the kitchen and then come back and watch something on Netflix, or if you want to come back and work on something in your room, that might mean getting stuck out there a little bit, and that's something that you wouldn't have to deal with if you had your own apartment. The other thing is that it's not your house. So if you're used to living on your own, that might be an adjustment that you're going to have to make, living in a house with someone that, it's not your house anymore. It's not like, oh, it's our shared apartment. No, this is their house. So you're going to have to respect their rules. That can mean a lot of different things. And one of the biggest, I think, would be having guests over. But if your host family says that they don't want to have guests over, then you're going to have to be considerate of that. So that's also an adjustment that you might have to make depending on your situation beforehand. So another negative about being an au pair is that the income isn't huge. I don't have an issue with it because I'm very thankful that I don't have to find a place to stay. I'm very thankful that I don't have to think about the food that I'm buying. But if you have other bills that you have to pay for back home, then that might be a negative because you might be able to find accommodation cheaper somewhere. So I'm just gonna leave you with one last thing, and that's you really, really want to pick a good host family and someone that you mesh with really well, and someone that you have a connection with, because if you don't, then you're not going to have as great a time because you're going to feel like it's work. It gives you a different outlook on things. Technically, I get off at 6:30, but then we all eat dinner together at 7, and then if I didn't make dinner, then I'll do the dishes. And so, that means that I don't really get off per se until 8 or later. If you look at that as work, then you're going to have a negative view of it rather than just looking at it like you're spending time with family. So if I had a view towards this job that it was a job and strictly that, then I wouldn't have the same outlook on this whole experience that I have. So just really try to make sure that the family that you're going to go live with for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months is someone that you're going to be able to get along with, and someone that you're going to enjoy spending time with, because it's going to make the whole thing so much better if you do. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.